PEP has made an online petition about this.
Chicos!
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. On January 22nd, the anti-nuclear treaty came into effect. It binds the 51 nations that agreed to it, not only not to use nuclear weapons, but not even to possess them. Promoting enduring peace on that date started a campaign on behalf of a nuclear resistor, Mark Colville. They're trying to appeal to a Georgia judge, Elisa Godby, who will decide on February 19th whether to send Mark Colville back to prison. Colville had spent 15 months in a Georgia prison until he made bail. He was involved with an action with the Kings Bay Plowshares 7, in which they took their own blood and poured it on a plaque in a waiting room in the subbase, and also hammered on a model of a submarine that has the Trident nuclear missiles. They were doing this in an effort to try to awaken the American people to the path that we are taking that is so risking nuclear war. PEP has made an online petition about this. PEP's administrator, and that's me, also had an article written after Nancy Pelosi spoke to the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mr. Milley, hoping to limit Trump's ability to start a nuclear war. The title of my piece, that was published in the New Haven Register and other papers, was, yes, a U.S. president can start a nuclear war all on his own. Please go to PEP for a link to the petition. Remember, the Obama-Biden administration started a program to modernize nuclear weapons. It's costing you $10 billion. In past shows, we've talked about the persecution of Iranian lawyer Nasarin Soutudeh. There's now a film available. Here's the trailer.
Nasserine Soutudeh is a prominent lawyer in Iran who's been fighting for children's rights, women's rights, and human rights.
She is one of the bravest voices in Iran.
She took on cases that other lawyers were too afraid to take on.
We've seen Nasserine Soutudeh jailed for defending human rights.
And it has cost her and her young family a lot.
Protesting against the law which forces Iranian women to wear the hijab.
The country's most prominent human rights activist and a voice for the voiceless.
I had been in Iran maybe a week, and I knew how to toe the line as a woman. And then I meet Nasarin Soutudeh, who doesn't toe the line at all.
داستان یک عمریه که ما با این مسائل دست و پنجه داریم نرم میکنیم ولی اجازه نمیدیم که باز دست به خون دیگران آلوده کنیم.
On Wednesday, Nasserine Soutudeh was again arrested. She had been tried and convicted in absentia. According to her husband, she intends to continue her activism from prison.
هیچ جامعه‌ای بدون پرداخت هزینه به هیچ جا نرسیده. همه احزاب، گروه‌ها، افراد آزادانه بتونن تو بحث‌ها مشارکت کنن. اینه که این پرونده برای من اهمیت داره.
Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont told the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters that he doesn't want to build a fracked gas power plant in Killingly. The problem is he's not doing anything to stop it. His siting council approved the plan, and now there's only one more permit needed, and then the backhoes can start digging. We need a maximum effort now in the next few weeks against the plant. Here are some memes found on the Twitter feed of @CT Climate, which belongs to the Connecticut Climate Crisis Mobilization. Please send them along to @Gov Ned Lamont. And here's CT Climate's reply to Elon Musk's announcement that he'll donate $100 million in prize money for the best carbon capture device. The reply reads, "The device already exists. It's called Mature Trees. Join in the fight to keep DuPont bulldozers away from Remington Woods and Bridgeport. Please send us the $100 million. If you see this program by Sunday the 24th, consider going to the 2 p.m. Eastern webinar called Climate, COVID, and Capitalism. The best way to find the link is by going to the Twitter feed CT Climate and then look for the top pinned tweet. Now this climate plea to the folks who make the ads.
Right now, we're facing a climate crisis. Fossil fuel companies know they're the ones driving this, so they're fighting for every last bit of profit.
This is an industry fighting for its license to operate.
The PR and ad agencies are the front line of defense for the fossil fuel industry.
They provide the expert services that these groups need to try to package the poisonous message and make it seem like it's legitimate.
If money is the oxygen on which the fires of global warming burn, then the snappy catchphrases and images that come out of the PR and advertising industry, that's the kindling.
For the fossil fuel industry, the role of advertising PR isn't around influencing consumer choice. They're using advertising to influence public opinion.
They're trying to send the message to policymakers that we don't need regulation.
Those messages hinge upon positioning the fossil fuel industry as good climate actors.
They'll invest tiny amounts of money in things that make them look good and look green.
They say, oh, no, we're ready to change. And it's never actually true.
They use buzzwords that are meant to confuse people.
Words such as clean coal. There is no such thing as clean coal.
Quote unquote, low carbon gas.
It's a coordinated, concerted effort.
Their desire is to compete with science.
To drown out the voices of scientists, the voices of activists.
They're a well-oiled propaganda machine.
The interesting question is why creative talent is willing to lend itself to this machine.
At this moment of crisis, agencies need to change, and creative professionals need to decide which side they're on.
You are either serving the solutions or serving destruction.
Stop misleading the public.
Stop doing propaganda.
If you continue to work on polluter relations, you'll be one of the greatest obstacles to climate progress.
It is time to come clean.
It's time to come clean.
Come clean already.
It really is time to come clean.
January 15th was 1 year to the date when Mubarak Suleiman was shot to death in West Haven, Connecticut, in a hail of bullets from a state trooper.
Today is a very devastating day for me. It's a hard day for me. I would want anyone to experience this kind of day. It was exactly 5 o'clock when the trooper murdered my son right here. Not any family to experience this kind of day is hard, very devastating to all my family. I hope this trooper will be held accountable for killing and brutalizing my son, for not even taking a minute to justify his shooting, for shooting my son. I want him to be held accountable for killing him, for not doing anything. He wasn't a threat to the trooper. My son was not a threat to the trooper. He was in the car, trapped in the car, couldn't even come out to even do anything to the trooper, and the trooper shot my son 7 times. I want my son to be remembered. Has everybody to add in the prayers today. Whoever is praying today, to add my son in the prayers. May his soul rest in peace.
What qualities about your son, Mubarak, stand out in your memory? How do you remember him at this point?
I'm loving, caring, very touching, ambitious. That's how my son is. He's a very caring person. So they know if this trooper had taken a minute or 2 minutes, he would know that he's not dealing with a criminal, because Mubarak doesn't have a gun, yes, to shoot him, or that little knife cannot kill him. If he would have taken a minute, he wouldn't kill Mubarak today.
It's unfair how soon he was taken from us. He should be here now. And today, my family and I stand here where my brother was brutally murdered, asking for the state of Connecticut to make the right and obvious choice of putting away a murderer, Brian North.
A year, 365 days, and nothing. We still have no verdict on whether or not State Trooper Brian North will be arrested and charged or even fired. What you read online, the way that they spoke about him, is a lot different to what white arrestees and white terrorists hear about themselves. We know disparities exist, and we know systematic racism exists, and we know white supremacy exists. It exists right here in West Haven, with the police department who broke the spine of a protester fighting under Mubarak's name, who allowed the shooting to happen in their town, and many others. This is not an isolated incident, which is why we have multiple demands, and is also why we call for defunding and abolition of police.
As you know, millions have had their rent payments delayed, but that just kicks the can down the road. Eventually, they're going to have to pay the rent to the landlord. If that doesn't happen, there's the process called eviction. A number of groups are trying to help renters by getting them the right to have a lawyer paid for by the government who would defend them during the process. The whole thing is called the right to counsel. It's in effect in New York City, and groups are trying to get it passed this legislative session in Connecticut.
I'm out of your evening on this Tuesday to join us to talk about the right to counsel legislation that we are pushing here in Connecticut in the upcoming legislative session that begins tomorrow. My name is Stephen Poland. I am with the Central Connecticut DSA, as well as active with the Cancel Rent Connecticut Coalition. And I want to start out by acknowledging something that I think we all know is true, and that's that the pandemic did not create the housing crisis. We were in a housing crisis before the pandemic began. Like so many other things, other forms of everyday violence of racial capitalism. The pandemic exposed systemic problems that existed before the pandemic began, and it's up to us to find systemic solutions as we move to come out of it. We can't just go back to normal. So as the writer and activist Arundhati Roy wrote recently, nothing could be worse than a return to normality. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. So however necessary we know temporary relief measures are, the eviction moratorium is, canceling rent is, we know that if we're going to take advantage of this opening and build a gateway into this next world, we need systemic solutions as well. And we believe that right to counsel is a systemic solution, maybe not a solution, but a systemic way to address these problems by providing guaranteed legal representation to anyone facing eviction beyond just the pandemic. In this event tonight, we have 4 major goals. We want to understand what right to counsel is so that all of us coming off this call can explain it to others, people in our community, in our organizations, our places of worship, and we can spread the word about it. We can learn about the push for right to counsel in Connecticut during the 2021 legislative session that begins tomorrow. We can get a sense of actually on the ground how evictions are impacting communities in Connecticut unevenly and how right to counsel would help address that problem. And finally, we want to commit to take action to get right to counsel passed in Connecticut this year in 2021. In terms of taking action, we'll repeat a number of these things that everyone can do beginning tonight and definitely starting tomorrow at the end of the event tonight. But I just want to lay them out at the beginning so everyone has these in mind while we're talking. First of all, sign and share the Connecticut Right to Counsel petition demanding all people facing eviction be guaranteed public legal representation. We have links to that petition in the chat, and we should have that up on Facebook Live as well. If you haven't yet signed on, please do. You can take a minute to do that now, and please share that in your social networks. We want people to call and email your state senator and state representative demanding that they back right to counsel. And we're asking you to mobilize your family, friends, and neighbors to join you. If you have a story of your own experience about how access to legal aid impacted your housing situation, we need to be sharing these stories with one another when we're comfortable doing so, with our legislators, so that people understand the real situations that people are facing, right? And that might be negative. It might be a situation where access to legal aid, you did not have it, right? And your situation would have been improved by having that access to legal aid, or it could be a positive story about how access to legal representation helped you in a housing situation. We'd love for people to have your organization endorse the right to counsel petition. We have, I think, 5 organizations that have signed on so far, and join us in a coalition of organizations organizing to pass right to counsel and to build tenant power in Connecticut. And finally, this isn't just about us on this call or any of our organizations. We're calling out for people to use this right to counsel push as an organizing opportunity for your community, your building, to connect with other tenants, to build collective power through tenant associations and tenant unions. So that's a basic introduction. I'm going to pass it over to Alice, who's going to explain a little bit more about what right to counsel is.
Hi, everyone. Next slide, please. So my name is Alice Prail, and I'm with Central Connecticut DSA. And I'm going to give a little background on what is right to counsel and how we got started doing this work. So first off, you may be thinking that we already have a right to legal representation in court. However, that only applies to criminal cases. Since eviction cases are civil cases, tenants are not guaranteed legal representation. And without a guarantee, it depends entirely on if the tenant has the resources to hire a lawyer, or if they're able to secure help from a legal aid organization. And it's led to a very imbalanced system. Right now, only 7% of all tenants facing evictions do so with a lawyer by their side. So that's what we're fighting for. All tenants should have the right to counsel when facing an eviction. No one should have to go through the stressful situation of being evicted and have to do so without legal help in the court.
For more about the effort, go to the Facebook page of the Central Connecticut Democratic Socialists of America. Now to Inauguration Day. In New Haven, Unidad Latina and Accion had an hours-long event where they publicized efforts to win immigration rights and other public good.
Aquí hoy todos reunidos porque creo que todos estamos por la misma causa. Todos hemos soñado con una reforma migratoria integral para todos.
Hello, my name is Pedro and I am from ULA and I'm here with everyone today. We all have the same cause that we're fighting for, and that is for immigration reform.
Creo que todos hemos sufrido ese dolor cuando dejamos a nuestras familias en nuestros pueblos y tenemos que emigrar. Siempre hemos sido excluidos, entonces estamos a tiempo de pedirle a nuestro nuevo presidente de que haga una reforma que donde incluya a todos y no solo sea una legalización. ¡Chicos! ¡Saluden, saluden! Se me está bajando el calzón. ¡Saluden! ¡Eso!
Before leaving, I'd ask you to go to the website saudius.org and to see the events around January 25th, a worldwide day of action to try to end the Saudi, Obama, Trump war against Yemen. That's saudius.org. That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. Stay safe, folks, but stay active. I'm Stanley Heller for The Struggle.